appreciate you attending this event and supporting our students, community, and guests. As you may know, we are here tonight to learn more about responses to Hurricane Helene, a Category 4 hurricane that hit land in late September and has since become the deadliest hurricane to hit mainland communities since Hurricane Katrina. We want to show a video from a weather team in Dallas-Fort Worth that captures how Hurricane Helene developed into such a destructive force and the impact it's had on communities across western North Carolina.
This topic is close to my heart. My parents, Patience and Baker Perry, raised my brothers and me on a farm in western North Carolina. We grew up with a strong connection to nature and a deep bond with our neighbors. In that community, we looked out for one another, like family. So when I learned about the devastation Hurricane Helene left behind, I knew our community would need support from incredible people willing to step up in powerful ways. Tonight, we're honored to be joined by 9 remarkable panelists who answered that call. Allow me to introduce our distinguished guests and Davidson Day families joining us on stage tonight. Panelists, when I say your name, please join Mr. Bishop on stage. Chief Warrant Officer of the North Carolina Army National Guard, Christopher Arndt. As a first responder, Chris coordinated and led search and rescue missions for Hurricane Helene. He also led missions for Hurricanes Matthew and Florence. Will and Lavi Atkins. During the immediate Hurricane Helene reliefs, Lavi connected with people in need and coordinated helicopter missions that Will would fly to provide relief and rescue for those in western North Carolina. Greg Biffle and Christina Grasu. Greg flew his helicopter to assist with rescue and relief in western North Carolina following Hurricane Helene, with his wife, Christina, as his co-pilot navigating the mountains. Ray and Aaron Everham. Following the destruction of Hurricane Helene, Ray and Aaron coordinated relief collection pickups and delivered items to drop points in western North Carolina. Vinny Giglio. Following Hurricane Helene, Vinny opened a 100,000 square foot warehouse in Cornelius to serve as a drop site and convoy pickup point to deliver donations to communities in western North Carolina. My mom, Patience Perry. Following the hurricane, Patience facilitated immediate relief collections and established relationships with community leaders in the Beach Creek area. These panelists are true examples of resilience and community support, and I'm excited for us to hear their stories. To guide the discussion, Head of School Andrew Bishop and I will be serving as our moderators tonight. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Also, if we can just give a huge round of applause to all our students here, particularly Capenzi for kicking us off this evening. So thank you all for being here. Before opening this question and answer session, I think it's fitting, it being Veterans Day today. And today we started with Lieutenant Colonel Siegelhorst, who's a Davidson Day parent, and he talked about 3 things in his message to our students. He talked about selflessness, he talked about sacrifice, and he talked about service. I think it's fitting today that we bookmark our conversation today really about those 3 things. And before I start, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for your selflessness, thank you for your sacrifices, and thank you for your service. For all that you've done already and all that we still have to do as we think about relief efforts that have to continue to ensure that we are doing everything we possibly can to support those members of western North Carolina. So thank you again. I'd like to start tonight with Chris. Chris, I think you were probably, out of everyone on the panel, the first to respond. So I'd love it if you could share more about what that initial response looked like. From activation through to you being boots on the ground, and what those general impressions were when you first landed in western North Carolina and those relief efforts.
Yeah, sure. So I've been flying for the Army Guard for about 14 years, 22 years total service. So this is not our first hurricane that we've responded to. Usually when these things come through, we get an alert to basically be ready. Now I am a traditional guardsman, right? So I have a full-time job outside of just flying for the Guard. That's with our group is about half and half, and so the other half that are out, we're kind of wherever we are doing whatever it is we do, gets the alert and gets basically we start getting geared up to respond. Usually, once or twice a year at least in North Carolina, especially down the coast, we get an alert that's, we may be activated. With this one, kind of the same thing, kind of just maybe expected, well, we're not sure what it's going to be, probably going to be a false alarm, it may not get used. Once the disaster started unfolding, we saw that, hey, this is going to be a real thing where we got to put our training to the use. And most of what you do in the military in general and in military aviation is you train. Very few times you actually get to take that training and actually put it to good use. Now in the military, a lot of times that may be somewhere overseas where it doesn't really benefit the people in your community. But with us, this was a chance to actually get out there to places that we're from. I mean, I'm from this area. A lot of the guys in our unit are also from Western North Carolina. So we got a chance to actually put that into action in our own communities. And quickly, we saw that it was going to need to be all hands on deck with the rapid onset of that devastation that happened out west.
No, thank you, Chris. And so my next question would be, to anyone here on the panel, curious to know why you were called to serve. What are your individual stories and the individual reasons that motivated you to act in such a courageous way that you all did in your own individual ways?
Not everybody wants to.
Well, I would
Someone's
say
going to be an
for us,
icebreaker.
For the two of us, I think it was our connection to several communities in the mountains. We've been up there for the past how many years? I lost count.
25.
So Will has been flying over the mountains for the real estate development business, so he was very familiar with every peak of the Western North Carolina, even Eastern Tennessee, Southern Virginia.
Yeah, so all the places that flooded are places I've been trying to buy as a real estate developer. So I knew the people. We've developed 50, 60 properties in the high country, anywhere from Cashers to all the way up into West Virginia. So I knew these people. The way I got started in this, the largest development we've done is called Eagle's Nest. So some people from Eagle's Nest texted me Saturday morning and said, it's really bad. If you can get up here, so I had them take a picture of the clouds, and the clouds were low, and anybody that's flown helicopters know you don't fly in the clouds, you try to fly under them or around them. So they were just low enough going over Grandfather and Elk River that I could get into the middle part of Eagle's Nest. And I brought baby formula and water, and there were some really desperate, scared people. And the community that we built was pretty much decimated, thousands of trees down, but it really couldn't see much because it was still cloudy. So I called Bobby and I said, you better get some more supplies. And she met me back at Wilkesboro Airport, which is about halfway back. So I loaded back up at Wilkesboro. I ran three runs that day, and it started to clear up on Sunday. I went back to Eagle's Nest, and I saw a guy that lived in a place called Plum Tree, and there's spruce pine, plum tree, spear, Frank, Buladine, which all you guys flying probably heard of those places. So I saw him at the community. He said I hadn't been down there, so I flew down to where he lived, and there was total devastation of the South Toe River. And where he lived, he couldn't even get to it if he was going to try to get there. So a lot of these communities were cut. As the road ran parallel to the river, it would cross over and it would make a gap, sometimes 100, 150 feet wide, and cut 5 communities off. So Sunday, I told Lobby we better get some more supplies. So I started flying into these communities that I knew the people, and I flew into the fire departments, flew into farms, and I took basic necessities in, water, a lot of baby formula at first, anything I could carry. Yeah. So Sunday I did take a Starlink in. So one of the takeaways here is, I don't care what you think about Elon Musk. He saved a bunch of people in this, and So I took a Starlink to Eagle's Nest on Sunday morning, and that opened up the communications, and that really helped. That helped get the word out to us, and then it kind of grew organically through Facebook and through any social media. You just kind of looked on social media to see where to go. And I don't know how Greg did it, but once you're in the mix, especially with rotor heads like we are, we're called rotor heads. You have your own little fraternity, and you kind of talk to each helicopter person, and 25 years of flying, I knew how to get in and out of these places, but I didn't know I was going to fly 56 hours in 12 days. It was a half a year's flying in basically 12 days.
So my story is really similar, but a lot different. So I didn't have a lot of mountain experience flying. I'd been in the mountains some, and excuse me, I haven't spent as much time flying up there as you had, and didn't know the specific areas. But mine started the same thing. Saturday morning, a friend of mine sent me a post that said, "Do you want to go flying today?" And a question mark, and then sent me a Facebook link to a family that was stuck up in Banner Elk. And up until that point, I knew that there was some flooding and some power out, but had no idea the amount of devastation. And so I tried to reach those people that day, and I posted that I was going to try and go up there. And unfortunately, I got about 9 miles away, and the weather got me, down in the ravines, and I just couldn't get to them. So I had to turn and come back, and it was probably one of the worst things was, having to come back.
Greg's
I've been a little sick. Come back without him. And that's what started it.
I've never flown in a helicopter before. It was with Greg alone, should I say. I always had him hire a safety pilot because I was nervous to fly with him alone. And the morning after, it's scary. Our pilot was unavailable, and he said, "We got to go." This morning, it was 8 in the morning. We met a friend at the airport. There was still no power. They pulled out the helicopter with the tug. And he handed me an iPad, and he said, "You need to figure out the coordinates of where we're going and our call signs," and which I didn't even know what I was looking at. And we flew, and we saved a family about 2 hours later on the side of a mountain. I will never do it again. It's probably the scariest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, that was not what I was wanting to do for the very first trip. But we went to Swananoa, dropped off supplies, and then flew up with another guy with a Jet Ranger, and we were bringing more people out. And so he went in with supplies, and then I came in behind him. But it was 60 hours and 11 days straight. Landed at night, took off first thing in the morning.
As far as Aaron and I, there's lots of things that happen in the world that you're far away from, and this happened right in our backyard. And they talk about your time, talent, treasure, and wanted to do something, seeing the devastation and seeing how close it was, an hour and a half away, that we needed to do something, and not always knowing what you can do. And Aaron got together with the school here, and they got together and started donations and drawing things on Monday, and for 3 Mondays in a row we took trailer loads of things out of here. And I can tell you that that emotion was quite overwhelming, because it came from the students, the faculty, the parents, Monday after Monday, whether it was water, food, diapers, on into winter clothing and things like that. It was really emotional to see, and the amount of work out there. As I said, don't really have the talent to fly a helicopter. Can drive a truck pretty good though, so was able to get in and out doing that. But watching how hard and how well everyone worked together, and how much just the family of this school put into that, and how loyal they were. It was really an amazing thing to see. And then watching what the guys with the choppers were doing, getting in and out, how well orchestrated all of those things were. It felt good to be able to help, hands-on help, not just send a check to somebody to be involved. And those people up there still need a lot of help. The devastation that is just, as I said, an hour and a half north and west of here is pretty amazing. It's going to be a long time before their lives ever come back together. But as I said, I hope that you tell everybody else that was involved what an incredible feeling to see the piles of donations here Monday after Monday, and the moms. I got to work and meet more moms, I think, than I ever did, but they would load those trucks and cases of water and trailers and things time after time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously it's the same story with Ray, but I think something that we've all talked about was no one really knew the storm was going to be that bad. So same thing, like I'm a kind of a weather nerd. I pride myself in that, and I'm a big Brad Panovich fan. And he started posting Saturday morning that, it's really bad, we're not getting a lot of communication. So that interested me, and one of my close friends owns the rescue ranch in Statesville, and she is trained in swift water recovery. So she already had a team here in place, and she called me Saturday morning and she said, it's really bad. She's like, who can we round up supplies with? Does your school, would they be interested? So that's when I reached out to Lindsay Smith, and I reached out to you, Andrew, and Shiley, and everyone coordinated that so quickly and so efficiently. That first Monday, I was really blown away, and like Ray said, it was very emotional to see the community come together, and I thought it was awesome. We got to see our kids experience that. Like, some of the kids were out there collecting with us, and it meant a lot that you hopped right on board, and that we were able to do that, and that Ray was the truck driver. I said, hey, Ray, I got a little project for you. So thank you all for that. It was really emotional.
So I'm a fixed wing guy, so I was no help during this thing, but I've been trying to convince my wife to let me become a Rotary guy now, so we'll see how that pans out. She's shaking her head. So I had no intention of being involved. I didn't even know anything had really happened, and it went from that on day one to outgrowing a 50,000 square foot warehouse to a 100,000 square foot warehouse that's still full today of supplies from the community and a lot of big donors. So it's pretty incredible. And then when you're in it, you don't really know you're in it. You're just going. I think we were responding to over 2,000 messages a day. We couldn't count how many people. I don't know how I became the hub for all of that, but I did. So how it transpired is I've got a lot of car buddies in the Charlotte area, and one guy said, hey, it's pretty bad. This was the Sunday following the hurricane, and said, hey, we ought to go down to Walmart. I heard they're collecting stuff, and let's go see what's going on. So we drove a bunch of supplies down there. Just people would not stop coming out of Walmart bringing stuff to a moving company that had donated their trucks to bring supplies to the airport to fly stuff into Asheville. So we said, hey, let's call a convoy. Let's go deliver some of these supplies up there. We don't know what we're getting into. We don't know what we're going to run into on the other side, but let's just do it. Let's put a post out. So we put a post on Instagram that ended up going pretty viral through Facebook, and I don't even know all these other platforms. We didn't even post to you. At the same time, a friend of mine from New York who had an R44 messaged me and said, hey, I've got 3 family members on top of Beach Mountain that I've got to come down and rescue. Do you mind if I land in your front yard and stay at your house? And I'd never met him before, and I was like, yeah, come on down. So he lived with me for 9 days, him and his girlfriend, and they ran 10 hours a day too. I mean, they're true heroes. But that prompted us to make destination number 1 Beach Mountain. And Beach Mountain has one way in and one way out, and the road was completely washed out and was supposed to be recovered the morning we drove up. So long story short, we had heard in Hickory there was a supply point. This was before we had a warehouse, and 61 trucks showed up from that Instagram post that wanted to grab supplies. We cleared out 2 full supply hubs and ran these convoys that Monday morning, and we were so moved by it that it turned into this giant operation. We were running 150 trucks a day, just civilian trucks to the mountains, and we were running 53-foot haulers with about 200 pallets a day up to larger destinations. I think it was Harley Davidson in Swananoa that was a big collector. So, and it just spread like wildfire. We'd meet someone in Burnsville that needed stuff, or Banner Elk, or wherever it ended up being, and then we would have hub people and spread supplies. So, look, I mean, I just got thrown into the fire and just kind of let it burn, so to speak, you know.
Since we're going down the line, I'm Patience, and I'm also the school counselor here at Davidson Day. But as my daughter shared, we were longtime residents in the Beach Creek community. Some people from Beach Creek refer to Beach Mountain, Ski Beach, and then we call ourselves Old Beach. We lived there for over 17 years. We lived in a 185-year-old mountain cabin on 40 acres and a homestead farm. And a little bit different, we called ourselves the high-tech, low-tech family because my spouse, some of you know, Baker Perry's not here right now, but he is a weather and climatologist professor. So I joke around that in the winter and during natural disasters, I share my husband with his mistress, which is weather. And he was actually in Huntersville at the time noticing the weather forecasting and drooling because he loves that stuff. And so, ironically, he went up to the mountains Thursday to be there present at our cabin. And it was a good thing he was there because he was on the ground digging trenches to divert the water flow to save our outbuildings. The goats had gone into the barn. They were safe. He was bucketing water out of our spring house to prevent flooding reaching up into our home. And then the next day, worked through the night, and the next day, all our property was fine. Our animals were fine. And he heard the noise outside. He went ahead and geared up in his chainsaw and his gear. He's also a member of the volunteer fire department. Fall Creek Fire Department serves Eagles Nest community and partners with Ski Beach Mountain, along with the other area fire departments. So a local young man has a private heavy machinery business. So he had started at his house uphill a few hundred feet and was working his way clearing the road by himself. And lo and behold, a few other neighbors came out with their chainsaws, and a crew of the four of them cleared what was Russ Norris Road. Our houses was originally owned by Russell Norris. And that turned out to be the only lane to get from Boone or from Tennessee to the Beach Creek community. And so all of the convoys and the visitors were coming up the road that they were able to clear. So he was fortunate to find, it took about an hour, but he found a way to get out and return. He had a flight to leave on Saturday to go back to his other residence. And then that's sort of where I started to get involved. So communication was really hard, and it's very heart-wrenching to worry about your family and friends and have no communication with them. There was a lot of heartache those first couple moments, but I'm very grateful for all the efforts provided by the crew here, as well as other families who donated and supported members of the Beach Creek community. There's a lot of elderly that live there, and there's a lot of poverty that already exists. And so it's interesting to look at the next steps in that recovery process.
Yeah, later in the program, I'll spend some more time talking about that long-term, initiative. But listening to your stories, I think there's two common threads. I've heard. One, it's about community. The second is about people. Right? It's not just about what you do; it's about who you do it with. And I think for me, this was not something I was preparing for as I headed into my, first year, as head of school. Starting with, knowing that the hurricane was coming in. We had trips. We had all of our upper school students out on trips, so how to get them home safely, and then very quickly, right, saying, oh my goodness, right, this is going to be severe. And then starting to see the devastation come in and what that means. And I'll be, forever grateful, to Aaron, and Lindsay Smith for reaching out immediately, to activate, our school into action. And I'm really incredibly proud of that action and what it led to. And I think for me, what it led to, and I'll just speak, for myself at my own dinner table, it was conversations with my own children about what it means to serve. Little moments, right, to say, great, let's go together and talk about why we need to donate water. Let's talk together about why we need to donate blankets. Let's talk together about why we will choose a charity that we will continue to support. And I think for me, what really, kind of landed in listening to you all, emphasizes this is every single one of us here at Davidson Day School is privileged to be here. It's what do we do with that privilege? And what I know what we did with that privilege was we supported those who needed help. And that will be something I will be forever grateful for. Now hand it over to someone who's way better than me, Kapensi. Actually, she's got a couple questions, for the panel.
What were some key challenges you all faced when coordinating relief efforts in the immediate aftermath of the hurricane?
I would say keeping it all organized. I think patients can relate to this because the communication at first, we didn't know what was really happening. So getting those Starlinks out and finding out the real need and the real time, needs for whatever mission that was important and who was in need, and connecting people, because that's what I did mostly, was connect people. So because of patients, I was able to connect boots on the ground with those people there, and we were able to get those lists of like immediate emergencies. And I think without that, we were all kind of like, we don't know what to do those first few days. I don't think that you guys knew when you got in the helicopter in the morning where you were going. You were just kind of headed there.
I'll try and talk again. But yeah, that was the key, is communication. And a friend of ours is on the board of Polaris, which they have a board member on SpaceX, and they ended up getting us 300 Starlinks sent to my shop in the middle of the night. We got them about 5:30 in the morning, got them to the airport, and then subsequently got them onto all the helicopters that had joined the mission. And I'm not sure if you delivered some as well, but I know they were stacked to the roof in my helicopter, and I was just making drop points, because that was the whole thing, was communication. Nobody knew who needed help and where, and I had insulin underneath the seat of my helicopter and the cooler, and it's the first time I never saw myself flying with insulin, but people needed medication and all those things. And so when we would land, we would coordinate with the people on the ground. We'd set up a Starlink so they could communicate if we couldn't leave one, and we'd find out the need of what people needed, if they needed those medications, and then we're back out. But really it was Christina and all these other folks that were communicating through social media, and then whatever links came up, and then volunteers just kept us running.
Yeah, that was probably one of the moments that hit me. I actually cried about, I think it was the second or third day we landed, and they were so thankful for all the supplies that we brought, and they said, we haven't talked to our family in 4 days. And one of the pilots that we were with had a Starlink in his, this is before the Starlinks were delivered, and he had a Starlink in his helicopter, and he plugged it in with his inverter, and it had no passwords. They were all free, donated, and instantly all of their phones started blowing up, just ding, 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 ding. And we have phones every day at home. We get home, we go on social media and look, but these people hadn't talked to their families in, like I said, 4 days. And Mom, I'm alive. Mom, I'm safe. The babies are safe. And I sat there in the helicopter, and I didn't know what to do. We just had seen 5 people, right? And there's thousands more up in the mountains, and it was very, very impactful. Just to see the benefit of one single system on all these families, because now they could tell their families that they knew this area was okay. It was very intense, but very grateful that they had this service.
Yeah, I ultimately, maybe another way to ask that question is, I think leadership really is about how do you monitor and adjust, right? And what are those pivot points, that happen? And I think this was a situation where there was no plan, right? Because we didn't have anything to plan for. This was a disaster that should not have taken place. So I'm curious to know, from you leading, these initiatives, was there a moment where you just had to pivot to say, here was the plan, However, for me to accomplish the mission, this means that I've got to redirect my effort and energy from point A and shift it to point B.
I think from that standpoint of that support rather than leadership, right? Understanding, what Greg and what some of the other folks were doing and switching to that, okay, they've got a plan, now we've got to get them support and just being that support, because when time is of the essence like that, you can't waste a lot of footsteps or time, and somebody with a plan, as fast as things were happening, just needed support. And I felt like that was the best thing we could do, support the guys that had been there, seen what was going on, and get them what they needed as quick as we could. And it, again, I can't tell you how amazing it was to watch citizens, community, people come together and assume that responsibility, and then follow up with that support. Seeing the reaction to what went on just after that hurricane is one of the most amazing things that I've seen in my life, and it 100% restores your faith in people and in America, because it was like, man, they stepped up and just did an incredible job. So for us, it wasn't really about leadership, it was about support.
Please.
So one of the pivot points that was a real hard pivot point for us was, water, food for the first 5 days. And then all of a sudden, everybody's got water and food. And you're like, we need 300 oxygen tanks. And we're like, how do we get that? So it's, the need would change very rapidly. And then the weather got cold and it's like, oh man, it's going to be 50 degrees, the day tomorrow and 30 at night. Well, we need 500 blankets and heaters and generators, and it was sourcing all that stuff. And then luckily there were some big box stores that were contributing supplies, I'm sure a lot of you knew. But then it was, well, how do we get it there? Because another challenge we started facing was, as the military started arriving, probably after the federal, not state was there the whole time, but the federal military came in and FEMA, then it was a challenge of getting trucks to certain locations, and we had to pivot that. We had to actually shorten our convoys with how big they were, because if you were above a certain amount of trucks, they started stopping you and turning you away. But if you looked like you kind of belonged there, we could sneak under the radar. We kind of felt like a charity cartel for a while. I mean, to say it, so it was.
Chris gives it the green light.
And we were working with the air unit for a while too, with helping call in missions on certain locations, and it was. Those were all the pivot points we kept, but it happened so fast. It was like every day something was changing. And I'm not a logistics guy. Luckily, one guy in our team was. But it's incredible to see how much goes into that behind the scenes and all the volunteers it takes to make that happen.
Yeah, I think for us, this is the third hurricane I've responded to, and Matthew and Florence were very different. Coastal areas, we kind of had a template of how we're going to address those types of situations. With this one being so radically different than that, the typical ways we would get information and the ways we would process how to allocate our resources went out the window. It basically came down to, with all the assets we have, just get them there, and then each individual crew had to figure it out. And that includes, just like Greg and Will can tell you, it was, you find a place, hover around for a second, see if anybody's signaling to you, and if you need to get them out, get them out. If you need to land and go check on somebody, go check on somebody. That's not typically how we would operate that decentralized, but it's the only way to make it work, and what we had to deal with the terrain and the way the devastation was spread over such a large area.
I think inherent within all those answers, I'm hearing a lot of you use the word team, right? This notion of Team North Carolina, right? Team Tennessee, and how do we activate, together, right? And I think everyone here exhibited a bias towards action and essentially said, I need to act, right? And we weren't dithering, necessarily on waiting for the right response. The right response was acting immediately, and then really sort of understanding, I think, and Ray brought this up, what's our individual role, right? In different ways. And I think those are some incredibly valuable lessons for all of us, here in the audience, today. How are we a part of a team? And knowing that your role on a team, matters, and we all have a different role to play.
What are the stories that still stand out to you guys?
I got a good wellness check story that I told Greg before, but part of what we were doing on the ground is we were delivering supplies directly to people's homes, and we would get requests to go check on people that hadn't been seen in a while. So I got one personally that was a couple in their 80s that hadn't been seen for a week, and if you're driving up there in the first few days of this happening, your GPS will tell you it takes 11 minutes, and it'll take an hour and a half because of all the closures. So this one couple, I'm thinking is not around anymore, and trying to get to their house, and it was that situation. 11 minutes turned into an hour and a half, and finally got up to their home, and I'm looking up the hill. It's a really long driveway, and they're sitting on the front porch, and I almost passed out just thinking like, oh my God, they're alive. They're alive. So I drive up the driveway and I get in my truck. I'm like, someone loves you. I'm here just to check on you. And the woman walked over, and I still get chills because this 70-something-year-old woman gave me the best hug I've ever received in my life. And then the husband is on the front porch going, hey, you like Jack Daniels? Come on. And I was,
You're like, yes, I do.
I'm thinking I'm recovering bodies, and now I'm being invited in for a drink. So it's just, those types of things that happened to me on this would just change my life forever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, I'm sorry.
No, actually, I was going to ask you a question, because one story that I thought through social media that was wild was when you posted about the family that used a mirror to get your attention. And I'd love to hear, your version of what happened.
Yeah, so the way we were figuring out where to go was the airport, they're getting all these messages. They'd write on a 3x5 index card the coordinates, the lat long, and an address if they could. And they said, this stuff needs to go there. So there's 50 volunteers at the airport. They're weighing all these boxes of these lines of cars bringing supplies. And like you said, how did all this, who's in charge? Like no one. It just all developed. And so they gave me an index card, and they said they need insulin, and they need baby formula and some other things, EpiPens and Benadryl, because the bees were really bad.
All the trees that had fallen, so the bees became really bad.
The bees were horrible because, all the weather knocked them out of the trees. So we're up in some of the most rugged part of the mountains, and forgive me, I don't know all the areas. But we're about 5,500 foot elevation, and I'm looking, I have a navigator with me. Christina was with me that day, and I'm looking, and he's looking, and you got to keep some speed for safety. You can't just stop in the air, and we're looking around, and I caught out of the corner of my eye a guy flashing me with a mirror. He took the mirror out of his bathroom. He had his vanity mirror and was flashing me, and he was all the way in the very, very bottom of this ravine. And I'm just thinking to myself, how am I going to land down there? And I made like 5 recon missions, down in there. And the last one is as low as I could get and had enough power to get up out. And so I told Aaron, I said, well, we're going to have to land, and there's only one choice. I said, we're going to land, because once I get down in there, we can't get out with what we had on board. I was too heavy to be able to get out of that ravine. And so I had to go down, steep under some power lines, and then stop short of a second set of power lines and get, land down in this ravine. And they were coming running across the river. A guy shows up, and he's just soaking wet from here down. The next guy shows up on a 4-wheeler, and he's got his boots in his hands. And I said, man, you're barefoot. And he said, this is the last pair of dry boots I have. And he didn't want to get his feet wet. And when we were landing there was also a woman around the corner that had a white towel taped on the end of her mop that was waving it. So I think those were some of the folks that were getting the supplies. But again, they had checked on, all their neighbors, top of the mountain, over here, over there. And so the supplies, I felt good about the supplies we gave them, that they were, getting to the right people. So it was some incredible stories of, and then I will say that the amount of things the companies did, like you said, the need changed every day. So we need bar oil, we need chainsaws, we need chains. Because as they're cutting, they weren't planning on cutting 300 trees or 3,000 trees. You know, so they ran out of supplies. And, you know, we got tractor trailer loads of borrowing, we got tractor trailer loads of Husqvarna sent us chainsaws. And then, you know, then all of a sudden it was fuel cans. And I called Ray and I said, Ray, you know, I know you're tied in with VP. I said, can you help us? And tractor trailer load of fuel cans comes from VP. So it was just a, you know, it was a snowball effect of companies just, and continuing today, Furniture Row, all of them just sending, you know, supplies.
I would say what the community should take out of that is you meet people all the time, and just like you made a call to Ray, like we made a call to Calshans, we made a call to like so many people within our community that within hours they fulfilled a need for whatever in amount, whatever area that requested that need. So I think that, you know, pay attention to who you meet, what they do, and maintain connections, because you never know when you're gonna make that call.
Yeah, I think probably my most exciting mission was my last mission today. It was 6:45. I was running into Frank. It was my 7th or 8th run, and talk about people that helped. In here it says who helped. It's Carolina Aviation Network, CAN. They're out of Lake Norman Airport, I believe. Great people. They were running the relief effort at Statesville. And how I got my missions, I would just land, and then somebody would come running out, and they'd load me up and say, go here, same thing, a card with Latin long. So this girl, Erica, called me and said there's some people in Candler, North Carolina, that have not been seen. This is Wednesday after the hurricane. I hadn't seen anybody since Wednesday. 2,000 people had not seen anybody. I said, well, I can't carry enough for 2,000 people, but I'll put my 800 pounds on. So it was getting dark, and as Greg probably knows, you don't like to fly at night if you can help it. You got 3,000 hours, and about 30 of them are at night. So I started going into Asheville, and it was getting dark, and there was no power, so I couldn't get my GPS up. So I was able to get a phone call out. So I called Erica, and I said, I can't get the lat long up on this church where I'm supposed to land, and these people are trapped. So I'm circling around, and I can see the Biltmore, I can see the lights of Asheville. I said, well, it doesn't look that bad. The lights are on, and so the police turned on their lights and said, look for a guy that turned on his lights. And I followed him down the road into the parking lot, or at the baseball field, and there was about 8 police there, and they were super happy to see me. So I guarantee you it may not have been 6 days since they, but it had been many days. And it was many days since they'd showered too, because they all hugged me. I can vouch for that. They had not seen running water in a while. Mm-hmm. So the girl that helped me load up posted on Facebook that I was heading to Candler, and there was 2,000 people trapped. And if the kids here, it's a great school for sports. Imagine the state championship game, the adrenaline you feel at the start of the game. That's what it was like from the day when you first got in for the first mission till the time you laid your head down, that adrenaline. And so I left that morning at 7:30. It was already 8 o'clock at night. And I hope nobody's with the FAA. That's not legal. Chris, don't tell me. You're not supposed to fall.
It's off the record. We're good.
So I was flying back at night, and so I landed at 10 o'clock at night. So, and I started posting because I didn't, and this is one reason I posted was because of this mission, is people were attacking this girl that said there was 2,000 people that hadn't been served, didn't have anything to eat or drink. And they said, oh, this is BS, I live in Candler, this is BS. And I was just there, and I saw these people. It was dark, I don't know if they'd eaten or not. but there were people around the field yelling and screaming at me, and the cops were having to keep people from coming and rushing the helicopter to get food. And you can't carry a whole lot on an R-44 either, you know. But to me, that seemed very real. So after that, I started posting what I saw, and the only thing that I can post is what I actually saw. I didn't post a bunch of pictures. There was thousands of pictures of destruction. That didn't want to say, Lake Lures tore up. Everybody saw that. So luckily, the people that I knew had enough credibility for them to at least understand. And I posted more in 12 days than I posted in 12 years on Facebook. So that was kind of once the 12th day hit, and I don't know how it ended for you, Greg, but I was took my last run to Mount Mitchell Golf Course, and so you kind of see the same people, and these people were unloading, and I had a case of food, and this guy looks at it, he says, "Looks like we're having SpaghettiOs again tonight." So they were getting tired of the same stuff, and I said, "Look, I can only bring what they have at the airport." So I tried to mix it up and give it to people. But that Candler mission was probably the worst, I guess the most need that I saw. And as to Greg's mirror, when I read that, and I told people, get a mirror, do something, put an X on the ground. So at first we were only ones to the X's, and then I was telling Chris, then I'd be trying to get to the X. I'd already see somebody down there spinning, and I'd look around and I'd see 3 or 4 guys trying to get down on that X. And then you just go to your other lap long spots and say, can I stop here? But that Candler mission is full of adrenaline. Every day was full of adrenaline, and as my girls can tell you, I don't cry or lose it much, but you couldn't help but have survivor guilt coming back from where you see these people suffering. I was going back to my own bed, and lights and shower and food, anything I wanted, no SpaghettiOs, and that kind of wore on me more than from 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet. You see where rivers used to be 30 yards wide, now they're 400 yards wide. That kind of gets redundant, or you kind of get overloaded, and you say it's all starting to look the same. You see a pile of debris stacked up bigger than this building. You're going to have to take somebody there with a cadaver dog and see what's in there and try to get it out. So it started to become I wouldn't say redundant, but we're doing the same thing. But to Ray's point, the people that were ready to load you up, there was truck after truck at Statesville, unloading stuff, and then we moved it to Spruce Pine, and the people up there, it was just amazing to see.
I think it was Ray talking about shared humanity, right? And this became a moment when, no matter our differences, right, the commonality is how do we help, right? And listening to these stories, and I know, there are more, stories and the things that you've seen. Right? I think it's highly important that we have moments like this, and for here, in us at Davidson Day, how do we find more moments to tell those stories? Right? We're talking about some people in Western North Carolina where we want to talk about poverty. Right? We want to talk about total and absolute destruction that will take years and years to rebuild. We don't need to go far away to understand the impact of what's ravaged, parts of our state. And I think that's really important for young people to understand that small things can make huge differences. Right? And at the end of the day, how are we having these conversations with each other, listening, leaning in, learning more? Because I'd make the argument, and it's fantastic that our kids do really, really well on AP calculus tests. The calculus of solving problems like this is essential. The ability to listen and learn, right, from different people's perspectives, is essential. Bobby said something, his follow-up question is, you have to answer the call, When the call comes, you have to answer it. I'm curious now, how are you going to continue to answer the call, supporting initiatives and efforts? So what does it look like maybe longer term for you, or what comes next?
We were there yesterday all day from 8 till 8 at night delivering Furniture Row donations. So now Furniture Row gave us 3 tractor trailer loads full of bedding. So as people get into trailers and whatnot, they just get the commercial grade bedding that's there. So they have brand new, fully packaged twin, queen, full, and king sets that we were passing out. And yesterday we took tons of video because to me it was insane to see the amount of damage a month and 2 weeks later that's still taking place yesterday. We met one man who was raising his mobile home 3 feet 9 inches so he could have his power turned back on. As we were driving down the street, all I saw were yellow signs on doors, and I'm a realtor, so I was like, well, why are all these no one's in these houses? They're damaged, but that's because they did not have the money to raise their houses 3 feet 9 inches, and it kind of struck us as what are they going to do? They didn't have the money to raise their house. Well, how are they going to afford to buy a new house or wherever they may be? So bedding's our next thing that we've been doing. We have tons more, so if you guys know of anywhere that the bedding needs to go, we just head up there, we find people, and we deliver to churches. And we just, every day, a new company reaches out, and whatever comes, we take it. We'll find a need somehow. Some of the food was almost set to expire, so we donated it to a local food bank, just because we didn't want that to go to waste for anybody in North Carolina. So it just depends on the day. Whatever comes our way, we take it so far.
Yeah, I mean, my brain keeps going to figure out, what's next. What can you do? And I'm not. It was like flying the helicopter the last mission or whatever. I'd get home at day 9 or day 10, and I think I'm done. And I lay down and my phone, da-ding, da-ding, da-ding. I'm like, I'm going to fly tomorrow, because there was the need. And so I keep getting drawn back, and I'm going to keep going back until the need's not there anymore. But like Christina said, I took some videos yesterday just because I can't believe what my eyes are seeing. And it's so, I think the thing that's people are having a hard time with is it's so widespread. You think of one area, you think of Asheville, or you think of Swannanoa, or you think of Black Mountain, and it's literally, I don't know the miles, but it's literally hundreds and hundreds of miles that it looks like, yesterday looked like it happened 2 days ago. There's garbage and trees and gas cans and blankets in the trees 20 feet high, and debris everywhere. But, and I get it, they can't come and fix it in a day. But I'm thinking to myself, logistically, how are you going to fix all of this and all of that and all of that and all of that and all of that? It's just so overwhelming. And it's going to be years and years before these areas get, and I've got some equipment and other things, and I'm thinking, where do you start? It's a very difficult thing, and they've got a long road. I have a small river rock mine just outside of Whitville, Virginia, and that's a long ways away. And it took out our bridge, and my D9 was underwater, my stationary plant, and where my bridge was 60 foot wide, it's 110 foot wide now. And so think about the distance from, Chimney Rock to Whitville, Virginia, and to Tennessee. So there's a huge area, and that we got to figure out how to continue to help these people. It's not food and water anymore. It's housing and driveways and infrastructure and those kinds of things.
I've looked at long-term, the areas that were hit the hardest were the very socially vulnerable areas. A lot of elderly people, handicapped people, and as they go on, we know a lot of people, Greg and I, in our community, and I can tell you that I know that everybody here has done an amazing job, but Greg got a standing ovation at Charlotte Motor Speedway from the NASCAR guys, because you ask about what are you going to do next. Greg hasn't stopped. Greg has, he and Christina have done an amazing job, but we have skilled labor. And people are going to need skilled laborers, and I've spoken to my guys and said, look, when we can get some direction and some clarity from that leadership, we need to go a day a week and build. You know, that's what we do. We can build, we can clean, we can move. You know, we talked about that time, talent, and treasure. Well, you know, it will be good to go and do something that makes a difference. So that's what we plan on doing. And I know I've harped on this a little bit, but I hope that you can carry that message. And Andrew, you hit on it. But one of the things that I remember the most was the first day taking the stuff. I forget what the town was. We took it in as close as we could get it because we couldn't get up any further. There's a giant old factory, and it's the center where we're dropping this stuff off, and there's trucks and there's trailers, and there was no equipment there to unload, not forklifts and things like that. There was just a line of people, a bucket brigade of people taking packages out of this, like hundreds of people just passed that stuff down. And along those hundreds of people, there were a lot of high school students, college students, people of all ages, all colors, all creeds, all whatever. And then you realize right then and there that this is truly that community. This is truly America, because those people were standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder, standing those packages down that would go hundreds of feet from those trailers into the warehouse to be put on other trucks that were going out the other side. And as I said, to watch that amount of work going on with all those people side by side, hour after hour, you know, doing that manual labor over the pack, it was inspiring seeing things like that change the way that I think about a lot of things. You know, I don't give as many on I-77 now when something cuts you off, right? You wonder if that person was one of those people that were handing those bags out and give them a little bit of break. So it's changed the way I think. I didn't say I stopped doing it. I just said I do it a lot less.
Wait a second. One other way that I know that Greg and Christina are really involved in Lake Norman Humane Society, but the animal rescue and you know, the Barsowski family who has Chickadee Hills and always donates graciously to Davidson Day. Their girls go here, but they've been working with the Piedmont Animal Rescue, and there's so many, you know, homeless pets right now, and that's an area that I personally would love to be involved with. Certainly a huge, you know, to get those animals healthy and get them adopted back out. I mean, that's something I see going forward of certainly continuing to try to help with.
Yeah, we're the one that's running the warehouse now. I've sidestepped him because he's in logistics, so he's continuing that effort. And then on the sidestep, we had started a fund when this first started aside from that project, and because we knew long term this was going to be an ongoing issue. So what we've started doing is we've already delivered some homes up there, but we're working with tiny home vendors and container home vendors, and I mean, you know, my time is also limited, so there's a lot of us involved in this effort, but we've already delivered a bunch of trailers now to replace people's homes on their property. So that's kind of the next step again, and a lot of these companies are just bending over backwards to deliver these things. It's incredible. So that's another effort. We have a fund set up that we're going to start doing some more fundraising for, and it's literally to give homes directly through the people.
No, it's amazing, you know, to hear all this. I think from a school perspective, you know, one thing I think we all need to really let sink in is what occurred is now part of all of our story. Right? We've all been impacted by the hurricane. It'll become part of our state's history for a long, long time. How is it we think about bringing students when it's safe and appropriate for them to understand and to see what destruction looks like, but just as importantly, what it means to rebuild together, to work arm in arm with someone else and say, my time, whether that's 1 hour, 2 hours on a service project, or going there for a week to help build a home, can have an unbelievable impact and terms of what it means to help and to serve. So I know one thing, patience, is helping, us work with is, connect with local organizations within the Beach Mountain area. How is it we reach out to schools? If I think about learning loss, for young children in that area, that's something that's going to be real. So how is it we think about some of our resources here, right? When all of a sudden we've got iPads that we might not be using, we have computers. How is it that we're donating some of those things or just giving our own time, right, and talent to say, what can we do to help you? So I think we've got to think and systematize what our efforts look like, and how do we make sure that we don't just give in a moment, but we continue to give year in and year out to make sure that that rebuild, happens together. If you want to add anything.
I have a lot of thoughts. One thing, when I moved into the community of Old Beach Mountain, I became a student. I became a learner of the old timers. And most of the old timers had already filled their bathtubs with water in preparation for the power going out. Because that has happened to them regularly. When you live in a rural place and there's an ice storm, it could be a few days. They had already done that. I had learned to do that too. They knew to insulate their pipes, or they know to use blankets to protect thermal loss on their windows. They know how to can, and so some of them they would invite guests in and offer them food when others were coming to bring them something. So I think first and foremost, what I recognize is that we have a lot to learn. Our students have a lot to learn about sustainable lifestyles, sustainable living, environmentalism, loyalty, and some of the true values of community, where time, talent, and treasure showed up first of just with the community members themselves, checking on each other, and then once communication was established, being able to check in all through the networks. I think it would be incredible for our students to have the opportunity to learn, maybe with a humility to know that there is something called toxic charity. When there's not an infrastructure and leadership on the ground, or it doesn't match styles. The Old Beach Mountain community is very consensus oriented. And so if one person rises up, they might be seen as proud. And that's really not a good thing in that community, because everybody is equal, which is unheard of in our society. I mean, we're working towards our college essays and resumes to look different and to be special, to be noticed, to show leadership. And it's really interesting to look at how that model could benefit all of us, where we are more, it takes time, it's slower, but to be consensus oriented, to be a listener more than a talker. And yes, they have a lot of skills, and they need more skilled laborers. And how many skills do we actually know and have to offer? Maybe that's something, a passion, a little skill that each student might develop a craving for, to know how to use a hammer, or to fix some plumbing, or and yes, you can cheat and DIY on YouTube, but how incredible would it be to work on the trail building, or have the stories to tell about that project or that house or that bank that you helped restore, because then it becomes your story. And through the stories and our relationships, we're sharing in that community. So I think that's really an important opportunity.
I think it's an opportunity, and I've learned so much already tonight. I think these continue to be opportunities where we lean into our learning, right? And learning also can be uncomfortable, right? If you think about anything we've done, right, in our own life, how do we get there? Getting comfortable with things that are uncomfortable, right? And knowing how to do hard things well. I think that's what we've learned. We've learned about the gritty resolve, right, of people here on stage, but also that resolve, of people across the state. And I think that that's really important. Life lessons, for our students to learn, as well. Do we have time for one more question? before we open it up to the audience?
How can we as Davidson Day community do better to lead through service as a part of our educational experience?
So I would say, continuing to what Patience said, not everybody flies a helicopter, but I have heard so many people who said, I've never used a chainsaw until this hurricane, and now I know how to use a chainsaw, because in the moment, that's all they could think of to help. And the amount of messages that we got asking, how can we help? It was so hard. I didn't even know what to say those first couple of days. Then I kind of figured out, you could maybe help connect me to this or this, like insulin. I never thought I would have to find a source for insulin, but we made it happen through connection. So I would say for the school, just be open to trying things that you'll never think you would need to use, like a chainsaw. Like, I don't know.
And I love that you said asking the questions, not being too shy or too, self-conscious, but that's a hard skill for our students to know. That would be incredible to have to practice asking or writing those letters or reaching out to community members. That's a life skill, but that's also a gateway into service.
I think the power of social media as well for teenagers and every child with a phone. What our journey started on Instagram. I posted a video and it got 6 million views in the first 2 days, and we've never had a video go over 10,000 views. So it was the power of people sharing what was going on was so impressive, and there were so many teenagers around the area filming, making documentaries for their high schools, college students making documentaries about how things were changing rapidly, and just like we saw in the YouTube videos, so many students ended up wanting to learn about weather, which I am not a weather person, but now I'm interested in it. It's just all these different skills that we are coming out. Helicopters, not my thing, but all of our friends now want to fly helicopters, which is great. But it's very interesting to see that this has all taken place in just 1 month. And as it goes into the next few months through winter, it's going to get tough. But so many children are just having all these great ideas that they're just thinking of, and it's amazing just to see, just from this horrible event, unfortunately, but so much good can be found from it.
I think mechanically, no matter what step it is that you take, we call it selflessness and selfless service, but there's nothing more fulfilling that you'll ever have in your life than doing something for somebody else. We all kind of hit the ovarian lottery to live here in this country, right? We owe a lot of our success and our personal enjoyment to just being here. So that incurs an obligation to give back when the opportunity presents. This is our opportunity right now. There'll be more. There'll be more tragedies, more disasters that occur, more opportunities. And the main thing is just to step up and take that first step. Whatever needs to be done, take that first step.
And the other thing I would say, just be proud to be here, because coming from a different country, I will say this is the best country to live in, I believe, of the entire world. So you all need to be proud and happy that you are here, and these are the opportunities you have to learn and serve.
I think something very unfortunate that's happened to this next generation coming up was the events of COVID coming into their lives, and really, I felt like the life of community was sucked out from so many people, and then what it did was it made them go into these things. So many of these kids live their lives in these, and I think right now is an opportunity, just from what I've seen, I don't know if you could agree, but if Davidson Day School would put together community events to actually show the kids firsthand what is going on and what it means to be involved, I mean, you're going to spark the positive things, you're going to spark the sense of community for people. Because even during COVID, like, did we talk to our neighbors? A lot of people didn't, and I'm not saying everybody, but that's something that I think is so important that we've missed out on in the last 4 years, that now's our chance.
No, I couldn't agree more, right? That whole notion of COVID, we were afraid. We were afraid to engage, in different ways, and so the engagement led to isolation. And I ultimately think, hearing this is about interconnectivity. And how do we engage deeply and see people meet people where they are. And I think those are the life lessons, right? Service, fortitude, resilience, pride, that can really help create sturdy young people. Right? So I'm really hopeful that as we think about what the Davidson Day plan is, moving forward, how do we get our students, right, in age-appropriate ways to areas to see firsthand, to participate firsthand, to engage firsthand, to learn how to ask really good questions, right? One of those questions can be, how can I help? What do you need today, right? And sometimes it's just listening, right? We're to be, talking. And I think when we do that, we find out we have way more in common with each other than we do differences.
100%.
I'd like to bring something up I think it's going to be important going forward is the mental health of these people. I mean, they've been, now almost 2 months or 6 weeks out of their house. Some of them still haven't found their loved ones. Some of them will never find them. And, that's, the empathy and the sympathy that you could, just give somebody a hug. There's no way to really, I guess, sympathize if it didn't happen to you, but you can have empathy. And, the stuff these people are going through, luckily I never saw a dead body, but I'm sure they were there. I heard about it, heard from other guys. Well, I sure looked for them, but was glad I never saw one. But the mental health, I think, that's going to come through with these kids. They haven't even, haven't been to school in 6 or 7 weeks. Haven't seen their friends. That grandma's gone. The farm they played on is gone. So I think going forward, we got to figure out how we're going to keep these people up. I mean, the tiny home's great. It's immediate shelter, but would you want to live in one? The rest of your teenage years living right under. I know my two would not want to have been right on top of each other, and we'd probably be kidless. So I think anybody here that could help with the mental health. Eric Church's people reached out to me a week after the concert, which I admit I didn't really know who Eric Church was, which found out. I heard Greg was on stage and got a standing ovation, but they asked, how can we put 100 houses? Clayton Homes has donated 100 houses to put up there, and being a developer, it's almost impossible to get 100 wells and sewer and space them out. In these communities, 100 houses together is a big community. Beach Creek, I've been through there. We had houses on Beach Creek. I know it very well. There's not 100 houses in Beach Creek, right?
Yeah.
So imagine putting 100 houses there, but they want to help and they've got a lot of money. But how do you effectively, infrastructure-wise, put 100 houses in one spot? So now we're looking at little clusters of 20, 30, and then who moves in there? Then they're away from their friends. Kids especially are new neighborhood, new friends, and some of these pieces of land will never be built on. Again, as Christine said, going up 3.9 feet. A lot of this land that I used to buy is useless now because now you're going to have to build so high up. You won't be able to build on that creek and the river, at least in these mountains, at least for a while. Insurance, so the mental health, and then the practicality of putting that many houses in one spot. So we found 5 places to put 20 of these Clayton homes, which are bigger than the tiny homes, and hopefully everybody can assimilate together. But that there's issues. It's like going to a new school, going to a new area. It's going to be tough.
Well, I think the collective wisdom, of folks here. How do we activate? Answer the call. My hope this is the first of many conversations for us to continue to have. I think we are always stronger together, and we're definitely stronger when we're united in a shared purpose. Working together. One thing I shared with the upper school students when I was talking, about the hurricane, why we're doing this, what our relief efforts, are. I talked about the concept of locality, which is the concept of we know that we have these huge global problems, right? And sometimes we can be so overburdened by the enormity of, oh my gosh, how are we going to solve poverty? Oh my goodness, what's happening with climate change? What do we do? The answer can be to look locally and to solve the problem that's right in front of us. So as we think about what comes next, how is it we activate our networks? How is it we continue to work together to make sure that locally and together as a community, we're solving the problem that's really, really close at hand? Right? I think if we continue to activate each other, we continue to listen, lean in, learn, I know that we can make a difference. I also know, right, here at Davidson Day, one thing I've been, talking with, folks about is how is it we're preparing students to be world ready and work ready? Everything that you've talked about here is about skills and mindsets. Developing those skills and mindsets and ensuring the fact that those are just as important and they're transferable into real life problem solving initiatives for our students. I think we have a huge opportunity here. I've already learned so much, and I know that I'll continue to learn by engaging in these great conversations with you all. So I think now it's time in the program where we will turn it over to audience members for any questions the audience might have.
So I have a question. I was very fortunate enough to join Megan Gray with Patience. Patience was generous enough to tour us through her home in the Beach Creek community, meet some of her neighbors and friends and people I think she may consider family for as close as they seemed at least. And we only went up for a day for, I want to say, maybe 6 hours. I came home and I was like, what just happened? Where have I been? And I was thrown a little bit, and I had to really take some time for myself to reflect on what I saw and what we experienced, and we were privileged enough to share in new relationships. And in that spirit, I would ask, with you, that you've all done far more than what I did in a single day just visiting. What have you learned about yourselves through this that maybe you wasn't exposed in the past or you hadn't really tapped into? For example, I heard Ray say earlier he kind of checked his faith in humanity a little bit. And he's experienced people taking care of people in a new way. So I'm wondering for some of you who've seen things you've never seen before, experienced new experiences, what does that look like for you? What have you learned about you?
I can start, I guess. I had the privilege of when we would land with our supplies, I would go out and find somebody and talk to them instantly, just to say, hey, I'm Greg and Christina. We have supplies for you. If you want them, great. If you don't, please give them to someone who needs them. And almost every time we stopped, I gave my cell phone number. And we've kept in touch with so many people, probably 15 to 20 individuals who are in all these areas of North Carolina. So they keep us updated. They let us know. One sent us a gift card for dinner, even though their house was gone. It was very interesting just to meet so many different people in all different aspects of life, rich, poor. Everybody was the same. We all treated each other with humility, and we were all just happy to talk to one another. And it's something that I think we both learned that in Mooresville, where we talk to the same people every day. So talking to someone in Asheville was just interesting, and just to see how they're doing. They got their power back last week. They were so excited. Their post office, their man just showed up with some mail. That was the happiest they've been. So we've sent some fan mail. It's like your fan mail, or not fan mail, sorry, buddy, what's it called?
Patriot Pal.
Or pen pal. So we have pen pals all across Asheville now, and it's fun, and it's cool to see. Something I never thought I would do, both of us. So thankful.
Yeah, I think that like Ray said, the faith in humanity or in people and just people helping people. I was shocked by the outpouring of people, and everybody just like we had all worked together for the last 10 years. And I didn't know who was beside me or who was flying, the other helicopter or whatever was happening. The folks that showed up at the airport that are handing out these 3x5 cards, the people that are weighing the goods and putting them and boxing them, none of those people knew each other. And to see that was incredible. And then a lot of people come up to me and say, I can't believe what you did is so great and all that. And I look at it differently. I look at it as any one of you or any of the people I've been around would do the same thing in the situation I was in. I was in a particular situation where I had the resource, and I said to myself, if I don't do it, who's going to? If I don't go try and reach those people today, I was getting ready for a trip. I was going to be gone for 7 or 8 days, and I had a moment. I said, can I delay my trip for a day? And who knew that I drove my car to the airport, and my car was there for 15 days. I never went back to the airport for 15 days. I landed at my house that night because it was dark, and then every day for the next about the next 13 days. So, and I realized it was a huge impact, and probably the social media, it's love-hate relationship, but my phone was dinging at literally every 15 seconds of, I've got a helicopter, a friend of mine's in Pennsylvania has a helicopter, he can be there in 2.5 hours, do you need him? I'm like, yes, please send him. And I've got a Swarovski S76, and I got an EC120, and I've got, 3 Robinson R44s, and it
Not
just,
you don't have them.
yeah, it just never stopped. All the people, and I had 500 texts on my phone with not one contact, just all random numbers. I got your number from this guy or from that guy or that guy, and everybody just came to help, and it was just like Ray said, kind of restored faith that people just care about people.
Some of those were for me, Greg.
Yeah, I know. And I'm like, I have no idea who this is,
He said you never answered.
Oh, well, that doesn't surprise me, because once I got 500 deep and I only got back to about 350, at some point you got to go to sleep, and my brain won't shut off. I'm laying in bed. It's
And then
midnight.
you wonder, who did I answer to? Who did I not? Did I get back to this person? I think that's what I struggled with for a few days. I couldn't remember what number, because it wasn't a contact, it was numbers that I didn't know if I got back to, if I gave them the answer, so I can totally understand that.
Yeah, and I would say last thing for the Davidson Day students, I know you can't do miracles or there's certain guidelines, but the kids to be able to see just what we did yesterday, and the 6 or 5 different spots we went. We drove for 3.5 hours up there, just to see that with your own eyes, and to get out of the vehicle and get a chainsaw and cut some of this stuff, or get some of this debris, this plastic hanging in these trees and this stuff everywhere, to gather that and to clean up and put in a drop box, and see how difficult it is to make a small impact. You'll work all day with 25 people and you'll be like, that's all we did? And then you get a feeling of how overwhelming this is. So I would think it would be very good for the kids to see that firsthand. I don't know the logistics of that, but definitely I think it would make an impact.
One of the most important things I relearned about myself, and this is something for the students to understand, because when they look at social media and they see money and success and all this stuff, that should not be your motivation in life. Many years ago, I've built 2 very successful businesses, and it wasn't until about 7 years ago someone taught me about having purpose. And the first business I was in, I was doing multifamily loans, and I didn't feel fulfilled. But then when someone taught me about purpose, our last company we've been rebuilding downtown Mooresville, and we've been doing it in a way that's been giving back to the community. And so these events have re-sparked a sense of purpose in myself as I was doing things for the people in Western North Carolina. It never felt like work. It always felt like there was always that fire there. So what I encourage the students to think about in your life, especially when you're looking at your social media feed and all your shorts, is what is my purpose going to be as I grow up? not what thing am I trying to buy.
One last thing is that unfortunately, there's some bad apples always within, everybody doing good. And I think a lot of us can probably attest to that, but I wanted to at least mention that not everybody on social media and hurricane relief have good intentions.
Right.
So be cautious on, donating money to GoFundMe's and other things and making sure that people are doing the right thing, because that can take the wind out of your sails very quickly. Like you said, you felt good about all those things, and we recently had that same situation where somebody's doesn't have great intentions. So it's just always be aware of who you're helping and making sure it's going to the right cause.
You get to hold it. All right, first I just want to say thank you to everybody on the panel. This has been very emotional and very inspiring in a lot of ways. So I appreciate y'all sharing your stories and everything. So my question is, having already done some pretty incredible things, saving people's lives, etc., but knowing that there's still so much to do and knowing that there's still only so much that you can do, where are you emotionally in terms of feeling gratitude, feeling helpless? Like, where are you on the spectrum in that regard?
Since I'm a counselor, I don't mind to speak. Just it's really interesting.
Patience will help all of us right now.
Let's talk about our feelings. We all have experienced collective trauma as a result of this event, and it, much like climate change or poverty, like when that impact really starts to weigh on us, it can deteriorate. You have mental fog, you feel short, you're under a stress response, and so I had to detox for a little while because I was so worried about my friends and family. I had to stop social media for a little while just so I could rest my brain for a period of time. And I think that those things happen in our lives all the time. It could have been the election. It could have been, there's any period of time where we have a great weight. It was COVID before that. But it's really helpful to recognize our own limitations. And then the things that we have control over, the only thing we have control over is ourselves. And so as long as, they always say, that you're taking care of yourself first, and then you can offer that help to others from a healthy place, from a place of wellness. And so I think it's taken a little while to get back to that place of wellness. And I hope to share that with other people.
Personally, I had to turn off the notifications on my phone because when this first started, you were getting all the calls and the text messages, and I managed Greg's Instagram. But all the messages would come in, and can you check on mom at 123 Main Street? Can you do this? Can you do that? And it was so overwhelming. I would sit in bed and cry at night because I'm like, I can't respond to every single person. And for me personally, that weighed on me really heavily because with real estate, I have to reply right away and as quickly as possible. And to push aside messages was just gut-wrenching for me personally. For him, he never replies to a messenger, obviously. But for me, it took
social media. I reply to text instantaneously.
And that was just something that I had to learn to do. And for students, if this ever does happen again and they're in the same position or whatnot, when I turned off those notifications, my brain could shut down just a little bit. But I still couldn't sleep much, and then I'd wake up in the morning, we'd be off again, and as we're flying through the mountains, that's when I'm doing all the responding, and I mean, it helped save lives. Obviously, we couldn't get to everybody, but that's what you guys are here for. That's why there were so many of us doing the same exact thing, and it was very, very hard still is. I mean, it still was yesterday, but.
For me, for racing and my background is, I don't ever quit. and Ray knows what it's like. You don't want to
Race against you?
Yeah, you don't want a driver. You don't want a driver, a team guy, or whatever. Quit is just not in your vocabulary. It's not in a lot of people's vocabulary. So I feel like, if I quit thinking about it, or I go try to do something else, I feel like I'm giving up. I just feel like, okay, I'm gonna forget about it, or I'm gonna quit. And I don't really feel like quitting on these folks. And the other thing, it is difficult for me to, I just got back from an event that I had to go do in the desert. And it is difficult, it seems like, as you think about going on with your life and going to vacation, or go do this or go do that, and you're on the beach and the umbrella's up and you have a drink, you're thinking about all these people that don't even have a house. You're sitting in your living room drinking a cup of coffee in the morning, and they're living in a tent, or no power still for another, they're saying February or January before they'll have power some of these places. So that's kind of my motivation, and how to balance that.
Yeah, and I was 17 years old when 9/11 happened, and that's one of the things that motivated me to join the military just shortly after that. And I can remember the sorrow, but the motivation that I had at that time. And over time, life happens, your family grows, and you sort of get engrossed in you get engrossed in what's right in front of you. Coming back to something like this reminded me of that, there was a lot of sorrow, there was a lot of sadness within my own emotional spectrum. But there's also that motivation again. It's not, you don't want something like this to happen. It's, you want, you'd want to save people from ever having to experience something like our people experienced in this state. But for me, I kind of want to carry a little bit of that sadness along with me. Not as something I want to forget, but something to help me keep grounded and keep motivated within my own life. Just to keep me in the place I need to be, and kind of taking me back to where I was when I was 17 years old, which is probably a lot of the ages some of the young folks are in this room. Having that go forward was so valuable for me, and I'm glad I kind of can carry that forward with me today.
I think looking at it from we've been looking at this from a macro level. We sent the stuff out there, everybody knows where to go get it. But if you look at it from a micro level, and you adopt a family, that's personal. If you found somebody at Beach Creek and you said, I'm gonna take Patience's family, they're up there in 40 acres, and then her girls can come down and play with my girls, and they can have some kind of normalcy. I think going forward, you said, Steve, how would it work? I think that's, if you try to adopt a family, and I'm a huge pet lover too. I take every dog I adopt everyone that I could, but if you look at it from a micro level and you say, how can I reach out and affect these people's, especially children's lives, how they can get better in these families' lives. I mean, they've lost their livelihood. How would you like to wake up and see your factories gone? Irwin, Tennessee, the whole hospital is gone. If you were a nurse there, where are you going to go be a nurse after that? So, so from a moving forward thing, I think we get we've done the micro. There's places that are filled with supplies, right? I mean, they're to the roof, and that still needs to go out. But I think looking at it from a micro standpoint, figuring out how to reach out to these families individually and help them.
I have a hard time personally assimilating back into my normal life. We had, when we were getting calls about supply missions, we had one in particular that stands out. And I won't get into particulars because I'll start crying on stage, but it had to do with babies and midwives that were living off grid, and we got some helicopters out to them. And it's very difficult to go from that being your life for 3 weeks straight to, wow, I've built a successful business and have these cars, and I got, felt guilty even owning them. And it only has recently worn off to where I feel like I can enjoy my life guilt-free again and post on social media and do it. I don't know how many of you are feeling that same way, but that's really hit me hard. And just spending a lot more time with my wife and kids and the community, it's been eye-opening, really. Still want to sell everything and just, because you just realize how much these people don't have. And I don't know, that's been my challenge.
talked a lot about how communities have impacted these areas, but have there been any individuals who you've helped that have really stuck out?
I mean, there's been a lot of instances where I've helped, we've gone in and got supplies and helped individuals, and it's amazing to see, a guy has, 3 dump trucks and a small piece of equipment, and that's what he does for a living. And he was helping so many of his neighbors and so many elderly people and putting the roads and driveways back. And, but that story just continues to go on and on and on. And as we're standing there, there's another gentleman there that had been, I don't remember their organization, but they are cutting trees for people. And I don't remember what it was, but they've been...
Christ for Chainsaw?
Yeah, Christ for Chainsaw or something like that. And as we're standing there, this guy's got 2 trees on his house. And this guy's like, oh, well, I'll cut them for you. And it just like that, I mean, this house is literally like right there. A few minutes later, those guys go up there and cut the 2 trees off his house. It's so cool to see, again, people helping people and people doing things that, they didn't have to do. They just felt like that was the thing to do.
We also met the owner of a large park for RVs, and we just drove down to her park, and I mean, the RVs were literally, they looked like pickup sticks. They were just in trees, and it was horrible. And she said, we're going to rebuild. I said, you are? Okay. It's going to be a while. She's like, yeah, this is where our game room was, and it's just a foundation, and this is where our pool was, and there's no pool. So, okay. She goes, we just got our business loan from, 2011 or something. Yeah, we just got our business loan paid off last month. And we're going to have to take out another one. She was so excited because they were finally going to be debt-free at her RV park. And it kind of hit me a little bit because I'm like, you're so happy, why are you so happy? She's like, it's okay. Everybody's going to come and visit us. We're going to have fun and we're going to do it. And as we were there, one of the RV guest was there, and he had just gotten his insurance payout for his RV, for his truck and his RV, and he said, I'll come back in a few weeks to pick it up. They're going to come, the insurance is going to come tow it out. And she said, it's okay, don't worry about it. It'll be there. It's just in a tree. I mean, it's going to take, I don't know how they're going to get it out, but it was just seeing people happy. Like I said, the gift card, this woman lost her house, and she sent us a gift card, which, bless her heart, but I said, we're going to use that to take you out to dinner, because that's what we're going to do. And it's everybody's, the mountain people are great. They don't want help. They like doing it themselves. And so I think that's been something I've really taken away with.
I did notice that a lot. I don't know if you did.
Across the board, I would say the mountain community is having a hard time accepting or asking for what they need because they feel like someone else needs it more than they do.
Yeah.
So.
They refuse to feel sorry for themselves. That's just a common trait amongst people, I think, up there. I may not have power, but at least my house is okay. Well, I got a tree in my house, but at least I still have a house. Well, my house is gone, but at least I'm alive. They refuse to feel sorry for themselves.
Yeah.
Give it to somebody else who really needs it. That's what we got a lot of.
Yeah. I'd say the real heroes in my book are the people that served in the military, which is, today's Veterans Day, but Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Special Forces guys. I mean, they were there ready to jump in the helicopter. If I didn't have something to deliver, I took these guys around, and they had no qualms about, jumping in a river or going up a valley. Didn't know who they were. And a lot of these guys were retired. I felt like I didn't serve in the military, but I always thought that was very cool. And, they made me feel like a military guy. I was flying the chopper, and they were getting the coordinates and radioing back, and I felt like I was part of something. And so I think the real heroes are the guys that are, that had the skills already, and they went, they made it happen, and you'll never hear them beat their chest or say on social media, I say 20 people today. You know, that's just what they do. That's what they signed up for the military for. That was the heroes in my book, were the people that really actually saved lives. We probably saved lives. You know, I flew out some people that it was not life-threatening. They wanted out. You know, there's a lot of older people, a couple dogs, kind of two golden doodles were really cool. But you know, I think those guys that left their homes from all over the United States to come here and help us, and to Ray's point, you know, the people, I saw stuff, people do things that, myself included, that, you know, busy life, you know, a lot of stuff going on, and it just went on pause for 3 weeks. And, you know, I couldn't think about work. I don't know what my employees thought it was AWOL or something, but some of them are on social media and they knew what was going on. But that, you know, it changed me forever. You know, just, you know, I know who, if, you know, this happens again, I know who I can count on. You know, it's the people. You can't count on the government. There's not enough people in the military to save you. You know, it's got to be peer-to-peer stuff, neighbor to neighbor, and that's, you know, so they were all really heroes. You know, that, like you said, cut somebody else's trees off before your own. But the military guys were the ones that I saw really. Everybody wanted to be affected. You know, sometimes the helpers became the victims. How do you run this saw? You know, I didn't see anybody get cut, but I'm sure a few of them had some accidents. So, you know, those were the real guys. And Veterans Day, you know, we got to be thankful for those, everything they did for us in the past, and this last 3 weeks especially.
Well, I think each of us has a connection to the Western North Carolina mountains, but those guys left their families and came here, not back, and that's a lot to be said for them wanting to help and just uproot their own life to be a part of the relief effort. So.
It's like getting deployed.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of those guys, they came with backpacks and tents.
Yes, they did.
So they're sleeping on the ground. You know, those search and rescue people and a lot of the people just came to help. You know, they're not active military, and a lot of them were not active anymore, but they just showed up to help a fellow American. So it's incredible to see.
There was one individual I wanted to mention. He owns a place called the Skyline Village Inn up in Spruce Pine, and he bought it a few years prior. We worked with him a lot to deliver supplies, but he was able to accommodate 200 people to house. He said I don't even remember how I got put in touch with him. He probably have experienced that a lot, but he said, well, screw it. The tourism's dead and the road's wiped out, and his inn is on the side of the mountain. It's surprising that he didn't get wiped out, but he turned it into a refugee camp. And if you've ever watched the show Walking Dead, and I know a lot of you are too young for that, but as you drive up to it, there's a museum just down the hill from his inn that was saved, and that's where all the cars would park from all the people. And there was a bridge right before his inn, and it's all the people in the community walking up to his inn, either to get supplies or to stay. And it was just incredible how he just made this refugee camp. And eventually the National Guard stationed there a little bit, and police officers, but unreal that people, how they stepped up.
Yeah.
Hi guys, thank you for all you did for relief efforts. But I did have a question about how we might be able to help going forward. You mentioned adopting a family, and I wonder if there's any place to go where we can maybe accomplish that or help others to do the same.
I thought that was a really good point, and I was thinking, sitting up here thinking that myself. But to be honest with you, I'm in the same boat as you are, as how would you accomplish that?
Do you know anything?
And I just know that there's it's, again, so widespread and so many places you could go. You know, we literally saw hundreds of them yesterday, so I don't know how a great way is to pick that.
I would say people like Patience. She had connections for me and phone numbers of people in the community that were able to communicate the need to us. So it would be the same way moving forward. I would say establishing this connectivity to locals in the community that know exactly of a family, and then they could put you in contact with that one family. Because our group of friends is doing the same thing. Like, you know, for Friendsgiving, we just are connecting with one family so we can figure out what the immediate needs are, what we can do moving forward.
Just a small thing about the Western North Carolina region. October is usually their biggest, most lucrative financial gain month, and because of the hurricane, all the leaf lickers were not permitted to come. But many communities, if you look, posted it. I'll have to tell you which website after, but it'll show you which communities are open and welcoming tourists. And so if you can take a day trip and go support a local business, I know a lot of owners are saying, you know, if they don't make something happen, their restaurant could close. They're trying to stay open for their college students, those are high school students who are workers at the restaurant. So if you can afford to make a day trip, I think that'd be great. I mean, just to support some of the local businesses, maybe not the chain restaurants. That's one small way you could go and enjoy. And we also posted on our last Davidson Day post, the Grandfather Mountain stewardship is one accepting monetary contributions, but they are one of the largest employers in Avery County, where the Beach Creek community is located. It's kind of like a mitten. The Beach Creek is like the thumb, and then there's the whole rest of Newland, and it's not a very organized county government. But the Grandfather Mountain stewardship is doing a lot with their employees going out into the small rural, not even communities, just little ravines and roads that are not open yet, and they're helping with the tree removals and those other things. So if all you can do is your treasures, that's a great one, and we sent that out on the Davidson Day link.
If we hear anything about Adopt a Family, we'll shoot it over. We can share it with you guys. I'll put out a post tonight maybe and see if there's any organizations doing it, just to see, because we were genuinely curious too, and it's crossed our mind, but you just reminded us, so thank you.
I think we just got connected on Facebook, on our
Sure.
Facebook page.
Okay.
So I can't think of the page right now, but
We'll
I
share
can
if we do.
share that.
I think churches and, you know, people would reach out and say, where do I take stuff? I said, churches and fire stations. You know, that's where everybody goes for information. And, you know, when somebody goes to the church for help, they've already lowered their defenses. You know, when a stranger comes up and they say, hey, I want to give you something, as we already mentioned, these are very proud people that sometimes wouldn't even take water. At some of these relief stations, I'd see people picking out one toothbrush, one bottle of water. I said, why are you only taking one? She said, I don't want to take it for everybody else. And I tell people, take more than you need and pass it out to people, and it makes our job a lot easier. So I'd say churches, to find people, they've already, you know, they're going to come there for help, and reach out to your local pastor or you know, the fire station. And I made a post the other day about this kid that came up to me at Statesville Airport, and he's very confident, walks up, wants to see what a Robinson R44 is, but he knew everything about all the fixed wing and what they were loading. He was helping to load it. He walked over with his mom, and he's from Huntersville, and he was helping the relief effort. And I let him sit in the helicopter, and he was so thrilled that, you know, that I took the time out to let him sit in it, and I took some pictures of him and sent it to his mom. But that, you know, those are the things I think as adults and parents, we got to open up to young people. You know, that may spark that child to be the next one, the next Greg Biffle, the next Chris Arndt, you know, to get up and help people. So I think, you know, any connection you can get with another family through groups and things like that, racing, I'd love to meet Ray and Greg, you know, and that would be the bond, to meet that family and just take them in and be able to help them. So, you know, we're working through churches and try to not make them feel like, oh, we pity you, but we're compassionate, we feel for you, and we want to help you. And then that, you know, once you break down that barrier, it's a lot easier to get to them.
Well said. I also think internally what we'll continue right, to have those conversations. And I think more than anything else, this is not the last time, right, for us to come together, talk, and collaborate on how we think about solutions. So thank you, everybody. Now turn it over to Ainsley to close out the program.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Can you please join me in giving another round of applause for our incredible panelists, Kinsey and Mr. Bishop. On behalf of all of us here at Davidson Day, I would like to thank you all for being here with us tonight to honor the heroic efforts of our families, learn more about effective crisis response, and discover ways we continue to serve others. I hope you guys have a wonderful